Homelessness by Group 6, Craig, Faith, Mahasan, Portia, and Sam.
In America, homelessness is a prevalent issue that is often overlooked. Here in America, we tend to ignore the people who are not similar to us. We ignore the people who are begging for change at the grocery stores because we do not have a dollar to spare. We notice the people who are laying on the street corners in the cold without a blanket or a coat. But we find time to say poor thing, or why don't they get a job? And we keep on with our business. When we are walking down the street and we see the dirty person who is walking towards us, many of us tend to cross the street to avoid making any eye contact. Making eye contact will force us to see the people we have learned to neglect. Eye contact will make us feel guilty at heart, and it would make us recognize the homeless issue that we do not want to be a part of. For centuries, America has turned their back on the homeless population, but we never think about how these people became homeless. Many people who have become homeless are people who are just like us, men, women, and children. Homelessness is a situation that is only supposed to be temporary, which often at times turn into a permanent situation that is hard to get out of. According to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, a homeless individual is defined as an individual who lacks housing without regard to whether the individual is a member of a family, including an individual whose primary residence during the night is a supervised public or private facility that provides temporary living accommodations, and an individual who is a resident in transitional housing. A homeless person is an individual without permanent housing who may live on the streets, stay in a shelter, mission, single room occupancy, facility, abandoned building, or vehicle, or in any other unstable or non-permanent situation. The United States Department of Health and Human Services also goes to further explain the definition of homelessness. An individual may be considered to be homeless if that person is doubled up, a term that refers to a situation where individuals are unable to maintain their housing situation and are forced to stay with a series of friends or extended family members. In addition, previous homeless individuals who are to be released from prison or a hospital may be considered homeless if they do not have a stable housing situation they can return. A recognition of the instability of an individual living arrangement is critical to the definition of homelessness. Many people who are forced to live a homeless lifestyle tend to be people who are living below the poverty line, veterans, or the mentally ill. But homelessness affects just about anyone. Homelessness affects people from all walks of life. The cause of homelessness is unemployment, substance abuse, mental illness, low income, lack of affordable housing, lack of health care, and or lack of insurance. One out of 7 people are at risk of becoming homeless. There are about 3.5 million people who are homeless. 23.5 are from 18 to 30. 37% are from 31 to 50. 14.9% are from 51 to 61. 43% are single men, 17% are single women, 33% are families with children, 23% are veterans, and 20 to 25% have mental illness.
Coming up are biological, psychological, and social factors that contribute to the cause and continuation of homelessness in persons between the ages of 20 and 50 years old. Beginning with psychological. Research shows that only 6% of Americans are mentally ill. That does not seem like much until data concluded that 20 to 25% of the homeless population in the United States suffer from some form of severe mental illness. The most prevalent mental illnesses within the homeless community are those suffering from bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. These illnesses go untreated because at any given time, there are more people living on America's street than receiving care in hospitals. The New York Times reported that in Berkeley, California, quote, on any given night, there are 1,000 to 1,200 people sleeping on the streets. Half of them are deinstitutionalized mentally ill people. It's like a mental ward on the streets, unquote. A study in New York shortly after found that 38% of discharges from a state hospital had, quote, no known address 6 months later. Moving on to social. These factors include predominantly unemployment, lack of affordable housing, lousy housing benefits, levels of poverty, and policy development such as closure of long-stay psychiatric hospitals. Roughly 1 in 7 homes in the U.S. are empty because banks own them. As of January 2014, 6.7% of Americans were unemployed. Lastly, after gathering research, it became evident that homelessness had a greater after effect on a person's body and mind than biological factors that had in the cause of homelessness. For example, it is believed that many homeless individuals fail to cope with their health difficulties in their life, such as cardiorespiratory diseases, i.e., chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and cystic fibrosis, which are both diseases that worsen lung function. Physical and sexual assault. Mentally, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and dissociation. Physically, bruising, bleeding, vaginal or anal, difficulty walking, soreness and or broken or dislocated bones. Possible prolonged physical effects of sexual assault can include sexual transmitted infections and diseases, unwanted pregnancies, and also internal damage that cannot be seen and easily identifiable unless he or she sees a doctor. Nutritional deficiencies, known as malnutrition, which can lead to a variety of other health problems, such as digestion, skin problems, and stunted or defective bone growth. On top of that, personal difficulties play a huge part as well. Suffering from loss of self-esteem, which can be caused by bullying or intimidation, abusive relationships, insistent stress or hardship, or traumatic events. Finally, developmental behavioral problems. As a result of exposure to violence, suffering from abuse or neglect, and family history of mental illness or substance abuse, to name a few.
Cultural factors which contribute to homelessness. According to research, people who experience homelessness during their young and middle adulthood are neither chronically homeless throughout their lives. Some of the crises which leads to homelessness during middle and young adulthood are serious illness or loss of job and lack of family support. Many young adults with children are more likely than other adults to have low paying jobs with fewer benefits and are less likely to have health insurance, large savings, or a stable network of friends who are able to provide assistance in a chunk. They are also less adept to have knowledge about or experience with housing matters, legal rights, and community resources. For many young and middle adults in the United States, parents continue to be their support system, often providing some financial support. But those with parents who are unable to or unwilling to provide financial support as a feedback and there is no legal requirement for them to do so, it is more difficult to overcome a single crisis. Family issues which contribute to homelessness. Young and middle adults experience homelessness through sexual abuse. According to a study conducted by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 21 to 40% of homelessness among young and middle adults have been sexually abused, and these young people are running away from becoming a victim again. Economic hardship can also cause homelessness among these groups. Young and middle adulthood face economic hardship due to poverty and depressed economic climate, too unable to support themselves and their children. Young and middle adults become homelessness due to problems in their home, which include physical and sexual abuse, mental health disorder of a family member, substance abuse and addiction of a family member, and parental neglect. In some cases, young and middle adults are asked to leave the home because the member of the family can no longer provide for their specific need and their disabled needs. Studies suggest that some of the primary reasons for homelessness among young and middle adulthood is family dysfunction and sexual abuse.
When discussing the ethical consideration of homelessness, I'd like to bring up the inequality of life and death. In the article, Do You See Me? Ethical Considerations of the Homeless, it says our society believes in easing suffering and promoting a peaceful death. When a person is on death's doorstep, family members or caregivers are usually there with medication and support to be there for the individual in their final hour. However, in contrast, homeless people usually have no contact with family or friends and are out on the street trying to brave the elements all alone. They have no food to eat or shelter to reside in. Another ethical consideration is a obligation to care. The same article also says many Americans have become numb or emotionless towards homeless people on the street. Personally, I see the same characteristics in myself because I tend to walk past most homeless people without looking back. Philip Mangano, who is dubbed America's federal homeless czar, says homelessness is a violation of human dignity and should be abolished due to not following the spiritual ideal of everyone being clothed and fed, especially when you look at every homeless person as an individual and realize that mental illness is prevalent among the population at 26.2% and 34.7% suffer from chemical dependency issues. That ideology brings these questions into play. Does a person have a right to be homeless? Or if a family is homeless, is it right to report the situation to protect the children? Sure, the children may be saved, but most likely they would be placed in foster care and separated from their family. It seems ethical to help the homeless. However, some states have laws banning people from feeding the homeless in parks. This makes you question, is our government really for the cause?
If you don't mind me asking your age, if not, you can just put like
45.
when did you become homeless?
9 months ago.
Really? And how? If you don't mind me asking.
When I came here, I was trying to get help and couldn't get help because other people didn't want to help us, period. They looked down on us, and that's not right. If you want to help, have other people to come out and help us more help that we need. Like places to live and all that. Don't talk about us behind our backs. Because we didn't ask to be like this. I don't understand some people down here. As much as I was told about this place, they help Atlanta. They call it the Hope Atlanta because I was told they was helping a lot of people, homeless people. Okay, if Atlanta's helping people, why is the mayor doing what he's doing? He's being ugly to the homeless. It's not right. If they put a mayor in the office that will help the homeless and treat them like they're people, like we are, we'll be all right. And it don't make no sense.
Where was your hometown?
Jackson, Mississippi.
Really?
Yep. And judge me. Don't do that. Only God judges me. If you want to judge somebody, judge yourself of how you treat homeless people. There's some good people out here, like my uncle there, my baby, me. There's some more people out here. We're good people. Don't take that for granted. God said if you do his people wrong, it's going to come back on you 10 times fold. And it's true. And like that mayor, he's supposed to be a church person. What he fails to understand is God's going to make him pay for that. 10 times fold. It's going to be 10 times worse. And I don't want to see that. I really don't. They want the help. That's all I'm trying to get them to see. There's people out here like us, like my uncle, my baby, me. There's some more people out here that want to get off these streets. They want the help. Bring the help to us. They help us. Because me and him's not from here. We need better resources than what they're giving us. The police not giving us nothing. I asked them today for resources. You know what they told me?
Call them.
No, we don't have resources. That's exactly what they told me to my face. We don't have resources. I done been to Salvation Army out there. They got bed bugs. On the men's side, it's so worse that it's leaving the men's side coming to the women's side. And that's pretty bad.
The first theory we chose to apply to homelessness is Urie Bronfenbrennan's ecological theory. This theory explains human development by describing the interaction between how people are involved in their environment and their personal development. Both people and environments are always changing. Bronfenbrennan suggested that the way people perceive or react to things that happen to them and relate them to the context of their environment has a large impact on their well-being and trajectory. For example, someone with a mental disability or past experience of low income or abuse will react differently to job loss than someone who grew up in an upper middle class family. The second person could see the job loss as an opportunity to go back to school, and the first person could become depressed and anxious about his or her circumstances and not be able to pay bills. The second theory we compare to homelessness is Daniel Levinson's theory built around life structures or behavior patterns that combine with the environment mold people's lives. Life structures can be religion, culture, events, people, and many other aspects. Levinson states that middle adulthood people have already established their families and careers. And during this transition, they begin to question their future. Questions can include what life will look like with a different family situation, such as becoming an empty nester, what it means to grow old, or assessing whether or not previous choices remain satisfying. We have determined that homelessness goes against Levinson's theory because if someone is to become homeless during young or early stages of middle adulthood, there possibly could not be a family or career to reevaluate and change during the 40s and 50s.
Possible solutions that I have found come from a researcher in Hungary named Horváth Victoria. He has suggested that access to good quality and affordable housing is initially important along with revising the politics on employment. He believes social and housing policy should deal with the issues of homelessness instead of law enforcement. He also feels increasing housing subsidies, having effective debt management control, and a social service system that focuses on getting homeless people rehoused by putting more of an emphasis on prevention instead of post compensation would solve the issue of homelessness.
There are many ways we can improve the living situation of our homeless population. Tavis Smiley in Cornell West's book, The Rich and the Rest of Us, mentions many ways to improve the poverty here in America. What interests us is the three P's: priority, plan, and path. If we make the homeless issue a priority, we can plan accordingly to carve a path to solve the homeless situation.